Welcome to Let's Talk Business Phoenix, the Greater Phoenix Chamber's podcast. I'm your host, Todd Sanders, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. Each week, we tackle key issues affecting businesses, the community, and state, aiming to drive growth and overcome challenges while uniting community leaders to move Phoenix forward.
Let's Talk Business Phoenix was produced in partnership with Ideas Collide, an agency offering a full suite of custom marketing solutions for your brand's unique challenges. Make a connection at ideascollide.com.
Welcome back to the podcast. We have a tremendous show today. We have Jim Currier, who's the president and CEO of Honeywell Aerospace Technologies. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Well, I know you're busy, and we worked on getting you here, so appreciate you taking the time right after the holidays. Maybe let's start with talk to us a little bit about yourself, and maybe two or three things that maybe even just one thing about you that's not on your bio.
It's not on my bio.
Yeah, that would be more interesting than about, because when I was thinking about bios, when somebody's reading my bio, it's usually very embarrassing, and I think the only person who would be interested in this is like my mom. My mom would love that part, but it's always the part that's not on the bio that's interesting.
The one part for me that's not on my bio that people would be a little bit surprised about is that I'm actually an adrenaline junkie.
Oh,
so I spent most of my life living in Florida, and now here in the Valley now since 2006, and for me, living in Florida, it was about racing boats. And that's what I did.
A lot of water,
so you could be able to go off and do that quite well. Here, I know people talk about lakes, and I'll be honest with you, it's not the same as being out on the ocean. It's a little different. So my version of that is actually doing off-roading out in the desert.
Oh, nice.
So I spend a lot of time out there doing that. It's an opportunity to unwind a little bit, disconnect, and to me, that's my portion of getting some adrenaline going.
That'll do it. Have you tried any skydiving?
I have not.
Are you allowed? I know I'm not allowed to.
I'm not allowed to do that.
All right. I get where you're at.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously not from Arizona originally?
Not originally, no.
Okay.
I was born and raised in the Midwest. And but then when I started my high school years, moved down to Miami, Florida. Okay. Did my high school and college in Miami, and did most of my professional career in Miami till I ended up back here in Honeywell in 2006.
Okay, so 2006 landed here. Obviously, okay, so we'll get this out of the way. Dry heat, wet heat. Difference.
Dry is much better.
It is, right?
Much better.
You can tell the difference. 81 here versus
Absolutely.
81 in Florida, right?
It's very different.
Okay.
Very, very different.
So landed here in 2006, and then you've been here since?
I have. Okay. So I've been with Honeywell for 18 years. From 2006 to 2012, I actually did live here in the Valley. But then in 2012, with Honeywell, they moved me around a little bit, spent some time back in Florida, running some of the businesses there for Honeywell Aerospace. Ultimately did an assignment in Europe for a couple of years, which was a great opportunity to kind of learn a little bit about global markets, the diversity that exists out there, the cultures that are out there as well as part of a business environment. Did that for a few years and then came back to the Valley in 21 and been back ever since.
Well, and what a difference, right? From the first time you were here to the second.
Changed dramatically, all for the better, I will tell you though. Engineer
by trade then?
Engineer by trade, mechanical engineer.
So studied that in college. Yep. Recommend that as a career path?
I do actually. For me, I started my career actually designing rocket engines. That's where it started as a mechanical engineer.
Actual rockets?
Actual rockets, yes. Yeah, working out of West Palm Beach for a company called Pratt & Whitney. Did that for quite a few years, but I learned during that process, I had an affinity and attraction to getting into business and the business side of the aerospace high-tech element of the industry. So I started moving away from pure play engineering work and started getting into business opportunities that existed. I was with I was with Pratt & Whitney for almost 10 years. I got out of that industry for a little bit, got into an opportunity to run a small industrial business for a period of time. Got the itch to run something a little bit differently as well. So we did a startup with a group of individuals in the telecommunications field. We were acquired, spent 6 or 7 years with them as well. So the thing that I've loved about some of what I've done is the vast amount of experiences across multiple end markets and multiple sizes of companies, anywhere from Fortune 100 companies all the way down to a startup and then telecommunications versus aerospace.
I see where the adrenaline part comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not afraid. And also I like the fact that you took one very specific path, which is engineering, but then all of a sudden blended that into business. So you're able to sort of speak both languages.
Yeah, and I think staying in a technological field has been able to help me in that regard. The one thing I would say about engineering, I love the technology and I'm exceptionally passionate about that. But, learning how to solve highly complex technological problems is very similar to how you solve highly complex business issues, right? The thought process that you go through, there are multidimensional variables that you have to take into consideration, many different elements that are taken into consideration. And so how you solve technology problems, how you design solutions in a technological space, similarly to how you use that same process on the business side. And for me, I just really enjoyed growing businesses, building businesses. That's more where I gravitated towards, but using, again, some of the way my brain was wired from an engineering standpoint.
I love it. And we're going to get into your leadership style in a little bit, but I think it's fascinating how that one blends into the other. Although I think business is a little grayer probably than engineering once in a while. It's a little bit.
It is.
So obviously we're all familiar with Honeywell. Talk to us a little bit about the aerospace side of the business and specifically what we do here in Phoenix.
What we do and specifically in terms of aerospace, which honestly speaking, not a lot of people know about quote unquote Honeywell Aerospace. A lot of people think of Honeywell and they think of thermostats.
That's true.
They think of fire alarms, burglar alarms, and the like. And I can tell you, I have a lot of folks that I meet. I'll have that conversation. They'll say, "Hey, where do you work at?" Honeywell. "Oh, what do you do for fire alarms or thermostats?" I'm like, "No, it's aerospace." And so I really, love to talk about what we do at Honeywell Aerospace. And to be honest with you, we are on virtually every single aircraft, both commercial and defense, that flies in the free world. In some way, shape, or form, our products are on board. Whether you look inside the cockpit of an aircraft, avionics systems, navigational systems, safety systems, whether you're at the back of the aircraft with auxiliary power units. In business aviation, we have jet engines that we provide, flight management systems, environmental control, cabin pressurization control, braking systems. So it's essentially nose to tail on any aircraft has Honeywell content, Honeywell Aerospace content in some way, shape, or form. So we're exceptionally proud of what we do relative to that. And here specifically in the Valley, we have over 7,500 employees here in the Valley, doing everything from engines, avionics, safety systems, design, manufacturing, and we actually do a lot of work in space as well. Most satellite systems have our equipment on board. Since the dawn of space, every manned space mission has had Honeywell content on board those missions. So it's something we are exceptionally proud about, the heritage that we bring with that, and the technology and the innovation that we're creating for those products.
Well, certainly as an Arizonan, that makes me proud to know that we're engaged in such a big part of the global economy and technology as it relates to anything aerospace.
Right.
So, clearly 7,000 employees and vast infrastructure here. What's the economic footprint here in Arizona?
Well, overall, Honeywell Aerospace, in our most recent fiscal year, we did over $15 billion of revenue. And we've set a very, very specific path to grow this business at levels that we haven't seen before in the past. We are in a very good cycle as it pertains to the aerospace industry today. We serve multiple end markets. So I talk about the breadth of the portfolio of products and services that we provide, but it's also the end markets that we're serving. So we serve air transport, commercial aviation, we serve business aviation, we serve the defense market as well. And we also serve what we call a fourth emerging market called advanced air mobility. So all of those are growing in typical ways that have never been growing in those ways in prior years. And we're going to capitalize on that opportunity and continue to grow our business and invest back into the products, invest back into the services, invest back into our people and skills and capability to be able to take this business. And my sole goal is to take this from a $15 billion a year business to a $30 billion a year business in 10 years. That is exactly what we've set our mantra to be and what we're going to achieve.
Given your experience and track record, I bet you're going to make that.
I appreciate that.
So you talk about sort of advanced flight systems or
advanced air mobility.
Yeah, talk to us about what is that?
Yeah, so think of that as, what started off as being, conversed around about air taxis. So urban air mobility was one of those, right? What I'm talking about is an application of said aircraft, but under multiple mission profiles. So you could have urban air mobility or air taxis, as they would call them. But this is also electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that have multiple mission applications across the board. And we've been at the forefront of driving that industry going forward. We've been working with regulators. We work with the government agencies as well. We've worked with the FAA to establish standards and requirements on how to certify not only the aircraft, but also how to certify the technology that's being brought on board that aircraft. And we're exceptionally proud of what we've done relative to that. And in addition, so we've been actually developing a lot of technology to support that industry as well and on board a lot of vehicles at present.
So maybe a few years ago, we started seeing Waymo cars on the road and it was really new. And then you got in one and it was weird for maybe the first minute or two, and then sort of became normal. And now it's sort of normal. What you're saying is we could be entering a place where we are going to see taxis that perhaps would drop you off at a harbor. That's something that's on the horizon.
That's one mission profile as an example, right? And I would say that's probably much further out.
Okay.
Where you would see adoption of this technology and specifically this type of aircraft platform would be cargo operations, right? Moving from one location to another, urban and or remote environments, being able to provide services to remote communities that typically wouldn't have the ability to receive those services because of the length or distance that they are from an urban environment and an urban community. So
it could be a game changer for rural communities.
It can be. It really can. And that's how we look at it is that, for emergency services as well, right? An ability to go out into the rural communities and provide them the services and the capability that they can't get to today, and in a way that's done in a very sustainable way with electrified aircraft and battery-powered aircraft, much like you would see with battery-powered vehicle or battery-powered cars.
Well, and that's a topic I wanted to get into, the topic of sustainability. And clearly that's one of the big areas for aerospace that's been talked about. Where is that technology today? And when do we expect to see some sort of commercial or military application?
Yeah, so I look at sustainability from a Honeywell standpoint across a couple of different paradigms, okay? One of them is around our operations itself. And so, sustainability and carbon neutrality and reducing one's carbon footprint is core to Honeywell at large, right? It's core to our DNA of what we do every single day. And we've committed to be carbon neutral by 2035. That's across all of our operations, not only within aerospace, but across our other divisions
Clock's
as well.
ticking. We just hit 10 years.
Is. And so we've been on that journey for quite some time. Right? So this isn't something that's new and novel for us. We've been doing this for well over a decade, 2 decades in terms of becoming a much more sustainable organization. That's for our operations. Then if you think about sustainability in terms of products and services that we provide to our industry within aerospace, what people don't realize is about 60% of all of our products that we sell today have some form of sustainability component associated with them.
Built in
today. So as an example, working with our colleagues in our energy and sustainability solutions business, they've developed certain technologies to be able to produce sustainable aviation fuel. We develop the products that run off of that sustainable aviation fuel as a result. And so that technology exists today. We've demonstrated it. We've demonstrated that our engines can run on sustainable aviation fuel without having any impact on performance, any degradation in capability.
And long-term, not
an issue. Same thing with auxiliary power units. So anything that we do in terms of turbo machinery, we've actually developed that in concert with our colleagues and be able to demonstrate that technology. So the technology is here today to be able to do that.
It's more of the application in terms of when operators start to use that technology. Okay, and just for folks who might be wondering, APUs are the little things on the back of airplanes that keep it going when you're parked at the gate.
Exactly. Okay. Or it's actually an emergency power source in flight as well. So, when you think about the miracle on the Hudson that occurred when, Captain Sully lost all power to the aircraft, the way he got power back onto the aircraft, because normally that power is generated by the engines when they're rotating. He lost both engines. He fired up a Honeywell auxiliary power unit, powered the aircraft, and allowed him to land the aircraft.
Gives you chills, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's not just for the comfort on the ground,
Sure.
but it actually has a very, very critical use case, in flight as well.
Yeah. Well, so hearing about 7,000 folks on the ground here looking to double revenue in 10 years. Talk to us about your leadership style and the culture that you try and promote at Honeywell.
Yeah, so I think a couple things I would say is there's values and there's principles that I kind of adhere to very dearly within Honeywell. Safety first and foremost. I mean, we're in a highly regulated industry. Safety is absolutely of paramount importance. So there's no conversation that we have within the four walls of the building or within any of our sites around the world that we're not talking about safety and safety enhancements and capabilities within our industry. So that's core. That's like table stakes at the end of the day.
And that doesn't change.
That does never change. There's no wavering from that in any way, shape, or form, no matter what you do in our industry. But then you start thinking about integrity. You start thinking about collaboration. You start thinking about innovation. You create, this environment where it allows people to come in and feel safe to offer up diverse thoughts around problem solving, diverse thoughts around solutions and capability. We talk about accountability a lot within our organization, right? Is truly being accountable for what you said you were going to do or what you said you were going to deliver to the organization. I operate in a complete transparent way, very open and honest communications across the board. Super important that employees understand what is the mission and what are we trying to accomplish relative to that, and to be very open about it at the end of the day. And so
it's not a mystery.
It's
Here's
not
where
a mystery.
we're going.
Right, exactly. You're very, very clear on what the end state objectives are. And so you can actually get people to rally around that. They kind of look at it as the North Star. And everything that we do is directed at that North Star of what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to achieve. And so any decision you make, if it's not on that journey to get to that North Star, is probably a decision you don't need to be worried about. And probably something you shouldn't be undertaking.
It's easy to have happen, though, mission creep, isn't it?
Absolutely. It absolutely is absolutely very easy for that to happen. Sometimes you got to take your head up a little bit, look a little bit down the road and realize, am I still on that path or have I deviated from that path? And course correct when you have deviated from the path.
How do you encourage your folks who know they have to be accountable to take risks or fail?
Yeah, so we actually embrace it, failure. Okay,
So you talk about it.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do, as long as there is a key learning that came out of that. So it's okay to fail, right? It's okay because there's a learning process that happens around. If you never have a failure that happens, I think you've stopped your ability to truly innovate.
Correct.
I think you've stopped your ability to push the envelope of what is the art of the possible, because you won't take those calculated risks. Now, you don't take negligent risk, right? They're calculated, they're understood, they understand what the ramifications are. But if you don't do that, you can't innovate, you can't create. And so within Honeywell Aerospace, we embrace that. We embrace when that failure actually happens because it will make us a better company. It will make our products and services better and something that the customer ultimately will value when we deliver it.
And I'm assuming at some point you have to test your products to failure. So it makes some sense that's
Absolutely,
how you learn in terms of the way you're working. When we're talking to employers around the Valley, one of the big things we hear is economy's great. This is a great place to do business, but finding talent is a challenge.
It is.
Talk to us about those challenges and what you're doing to address.
It is a challenge, without a doubt, right? I mean, coming out of COVID, it's been very, very difficult for us. But I will tell you, we've been rather successful, I would say, at the same time. We're in a high growth market today within Honeywell Aerospace. And so even with all of the challenges that are out there from a workforce enablement and capability and being able to bring them in, we've hired well over 1,000 engineers over the last 12 plus months.
And the demand is getting stronger here for demand.
Absolutely stronger, right? Absolutely. And it's not even on the engineering side, right? So you can develop and design and innovate, but at some point in time, you have to produce what it is you've developed in a manufacturing environment. So not only have we increased our workforce for engineering talent, but we've also done it for what we call non-touch factory labor as well. we've also increased that by over 1,000 people over the last 12 months. And it takes a lot of hard work and determination and just commitment for that to happen. And it doesn't happen just naturally, right? And so kind of to your question, what have we been doing? How do we do that? How do we enable it? One of them is the retention aspect of it that you have to maintain, because you make sure you don't have that hole in the bottom of the boat, that you're bringing people in and you're losing them at the same time. So we spend a lot of time not only on recruitment, but retention within the organization. But it's also about partnerships and how do you partner either with schools, or how do you partner with other industries to be able to bring awareness to opportunities that exist within the aerospace industry, and specifically with Honeywell. And so what we have done is we started off a couple of years ago with a pilot program at one of the local school districts. It was wildly successful. And then we started moving, and now we're in 4 different school districts. We're with a community college. We've partnered with ASU in developing a collaborative space where students can come and collaborate and ideate. And we send engineers over there to work with them at the same time. We run robotics competitions across the valley. We do a STEM Sundays with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So it kind of goes to the partnership outside of the industry. We partner with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and we've done that for a couple of years now, again, with those robotic competitions, STEM Sundays, and that's really to really promote STEM and the opportunities that exist within aerospace. And you have to capture that at a very young age. So when we started this journey, we started at the high school level, and we quickly realized that was great and it was very beneficial, but you have to capture the heart and minds of those kids at a younger level. So we started going all the way down to kindergarten. And we work with the school districts, and we have an incredible group of Honeywell volunteers that go out there, talk to kids, create little STEM environments and opportunities or activities for the kids to get them really excited about what it is that this industry can provide. So you have to look at it near-term tactical of what you need to support your business. But if we're not seed planting at a very young age and affecting and influencing young kids about these opportunities in our industry, that's the part that you got to be super patient for and committed with for the long-term needs that you have.
Meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you and your company are very humble, I will say, and I'm going to brag on you a little bit because you mentioned high school. So we at the Chamber have a program called ElevateEdAZ Arizona, and we started with 1 school district. We're now at 21. About 3.5 years ago, we came to Honeywell and said, will you look at some high school seniors? And you said, yes, we'll take 3. And we'll pilot this with you, and they're going to be in their spring semester. And that worked. And the next year, I think you went to 16. This year, you're going to be at 61 of our kids. That's tremendous.
It is.
And this is not, I think, what I would used to think of as an internship back in the day in the 80s. This is, you're giving them real work experience. You're teaching them about the field. You're giving them an opportunity to understand what it actually means.
That's correct.
To be in the aerospace field, whether that's in engineering, whether that's in assembly, a whole number of areas. That is a game changer generationally. So first of all, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's a big deal.
It's been an incredible partnership.
You're the gold standard. We talk about you guys all the time in terms of a company that took a chance on us and our kids. Why have you taken such a chance on this and made such an investment in this program?
We recognize the importance of this. And one thing to also realize is that, to get into our industry, and we talk about STEM all the time, you don't have to go to university to have a great career in the aerospace industry, right? And some kids don't have those opportunities, unfortunately, to be able to attend a university. But it doesn't mean you can't have a great career, again, in the aerospace industry. We want to afford those opportunities. And part of it is just an education process, right? It's like you really have these great opportunities here in your backyard to make very good money, right? Coming right out of high school, right? And so, like, to your point, we started off small. We've moved it to about 60 plus interns right now. We started off looking at mostly, IT office type things. And now we've moved into manufacturing. And so we're bringing kids in and showing them that there's all of this opportunity that exists that they would never have seen beforehand under the original construct of what they were exposed to.
Yeah, they never had that opportunity. And just like the Sully story, by the way, this will give you chills, and you may or may not know this, but one of the kids that you took in that first cadre of 3, high school wasn't really, he didn't see how this was all going to relate to what he wanted to do. And he got into the program at Honeywell and he absolutely flourished. You all hired him. And we just found out that he just bought a house for his family.
Oh, that's incredible.
For his, and generationally, the first house they've ever had.
That is fantastic.
It's a big deal to your point, right? Maybe if that hadn't happened, who knows, right? Well, he would be, but now he's discovered a whole new industry and all of a sudden that is having an impact on a whole family. So kudos.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you for sharing that story.
I love that
because
it
does give me chills.
Yeah, and there are so many of those we probably don't even know about, but that's the one we do. Switching gears a little bit, especially as it relates to talent, it really seems like everywhere you go or any conversation you're having includes AI. And clearly that is changing the landscape for workers and companies. Talk to us a little bit about AI and how you're looking at it at Honeywell.
Yeah, so the operational benefits that can be provided and afforded to a company by the incorporation of AI is only limited by your own creative thinking around that process. And so we have adopted it quite heavily, but in very specific areas, and I'll allude to what those are here in a moment, and not in other areas. And there's rationale why we haven't done it yet in other areas. Where we have adopted AI within Honeywell Aerospace is primarily within the functions and the operations of the organization. How do you do things more efficiently? How do you do things more productively, with more productivity across the board? And we've seen tremendous benefits from that. How do you enhance the customer experience ultimately through the incorporation of AI tools? How do you get access to data in a much more quicker manner and be able to draw conclusions and results from said data to help you in certain business decisions?
From an engineering perspective and a business perspective,
it's
probably
super
both
powerful.
Of those
it's super powerful.
Sure.
Super, super powerful. Where we haven't adopted it necessarily just yet, and because it kind of goes back to the fact that we're in a highly regulated industry where everything is certified, through the FAA, we have not incorporated it to actually design products, right? Because, there's a certain pedigree and a certain process in terms of validating how one does a design. And the cert standards there aren't yet to understand how AI can enable that to happen in this regulated aerospace industry that we are in today. So that we haven't done just yet, okay? But there are opportunities to be able to do that in the future. But we've deployed it throughout the organization. And it doesn't come without some risk too that you have to be very much aware of. There's data privacy concerns, there are cybersecurity concerns that come along with it. So you have to make sure that you're on top of all of that and that's incorporated within the protections when you incorporate AI into your business. But the one thing that I would say is that I also think people are fearful of AI.
I was going to ask you about that, especially given such a large organization. I'm sure there's a fear.
Some people are, right, and they feel like it's coming after their jobs. And the fact of the matter is, it isn't. It's about making your job easier, making you more productive and more efficient. And it kind of goes back to going hand in hand with this workforce dilemma that we have across the board. There are not enough workers that I can bring into the organization to support the demand that I have within the aerospace industry. So I need to make the existing workforce more productive, more efficient. And AI is an enablement for that. So it's not about reducing jobs. It's about improving productivity and efficiency to enable you to actually be able to grow faster than your peers or faster than your competitors through the incorporation of it. And so I constantly had that conversation internally, was like, no, that's not what this is about, right? This is about creating opportunities and creating opportunities for the business to grow.
So I want to talk about future trends, but where do you see AI, for instance, in aerospace in 10 years?
Yeah, I could see it clearly in terms of inspection capabilities across the board. We have a significant amount of growth happening in our defense business as well. A lot of people don't realize that we do a lot of defense work through some of the acquisitions that we've done. We've now become a top 10 defense contractor to the U.S. government. That creates a lot of proposal work that you have to do to be able to grow that business. So being able to use AI to be able to generate your proposals, being able to pull all of the cost data to be able to generate those proposals for the government just allows you to flow a volume
that
much
mind-numbing
faster.
work that would take forever to accomplish.
Exactly.
So speaking of sort of future trends, and we've talked about a few of those things, what are some of the other things you see shaping the future of this industry, especially for Honeywell?
Sustainability is the overarching aspect of it. But it's also two other major areas. Autonomy is a big deal within our industry today. How do you take certain operations within a cockpit and do them in an autonomous way to take pilot workload off of the pilot so that they can focus on those things that are most important to address in the cockpit, not the mundane tasks. Automate those, right, through autonomous capabilities and let them stay very, very focused on the most critical things that they need to worry about within a cockpit. Therefore, enhancing safety, providing additional situational awareness, to the pilot in the cockpit as well. That's a major trend that is happening going forward as well.
Do you foresee a time, maybe in our lifetimes, where you would see automated cockpits completely?
Yeah, I don't necessarily see where you won't have anybody in there, right? I mean, when we go back to this advanced air mobility concept I mentioned a moment ago in that end market segment, those cargo operations that I'm referring to, all of those can be done without somebody on board. You can remotely control all those cargo operations. So that to me is one way of looking at it as being there's nobody in the cockpit
Sure.
relative to that. But I think there's also going to be some perception. There's going to be some, how comfortable do you feel? You mentioned Waymo earlier,
Yes.
right? At first it felt very uncomfortable and very unnatural to be in a vehicle with no driver in it, right? And still there are a lot of, folks who won't do that. Just because of the uncomfortableness that it'll create. But eventually you start seeing more and more people adopting it. The thing about in the aerospace industry, again, the regulatory aspect of it is it's not defined yet how you would certify an aircraft without having, pilots,
Sure.
In the cockpit. Now, could you eventually at some point in time get from 2 pilots to 1 pilot? Through some of the autonomy and reduced crew work that you need to do in the cockpit? Possibly. But I will also say in the same breath when I say that, it kind of goes back to my AI comment around, are you going after jobs? No, that's not what this is about. Our industry in aerospace needs to grow. And so we talk about workforce constraints that exist to produce and manufacture products. At some point in time, you're going to reach pilot shortages, right? So this is an enablement to allow the industry to continue to grow. And again, it has nothing to do with, reducing workforce in that way, shape, or form.
I think your point's well taken. We used to have 3 folks in the cockpit, and today we have 2, and we have shortages.
Right.
So certainly a lot of work to go around, and certainly for Arizona and for Honeywell, looks like a really bright future ahead.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Well, before we wrap up, we're going to do a quick lightning round because obviously we want people to get to know you a little bit beyond your adrenaline junkie ways. First concert. It's always an interesting one.
First what?
First concert. I mean, in Florida, you had I'm sure a lot of good shows that came your way back in the day. What was your first concert?
First concert I ever went to, I was in 8th grade living in St. Louis, and it was Rush.
Oh, excellent. A very good one. All right. And since you obviously have relationships with Boeing and Airbus, this won't be a problem. I do ask this of the airport director, and so we'll see if you get this right. Favorite commercial airplane?
Oh, I love them all.
Oh no, but you have to pick one.
No, I can't. I love the products developed by both organizations. I think they're both fantastic. I love working with both companies. I love the way they're driving innovation, across the industry. So I love them both.
Well, I'll give you the answer. And it would have worked for you because it's no longer in production. It's the 747, the queen of the skies. So that is in fact the right answer. But thank you.
I failed on that one.
Well, that's okay. No, I think you're right. I love them all as well. So thank you again for being with us, for making the time. Clearly, you have a lot of
I appreciate the opportunity.
Everything you're doing here in Arizona, the work that we're doing with our kids, and obviously for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for watching this episode of Let's Talk Business Phoenix. Please take a moment to tap the follow or subscribe button for more great podcast episodes to help your business thrive.